Frankie Edgar is going to be taking on Max Holloway. I told you guys this the other day, and I added that Frankie Edgar was my favorite fighter. And then I told you we would get back to that. Now, I've told this story before, but many of you have asked me what I was alluding to on Wednesday's program, so I'll retell the story. But not only is Frankie a really fun guy to watch, not only is he tremendously successful, so if you're looking for a bandwagon, go ahead and jump on the Edgar train, but I had a fight, I believe it was in Houston. I think it was in Houston. Now I forget. It was in Houston. And Frankie Edgar was the main event that night. He was taking on Benson Henderson in a rematch, world championship on the line. Big deal. Headline main event. And I had my fight co-main event spot. I'm leaving the arena. And as I leave the arena, I pass this young man who's all dressed up in tap-out gear. He's got this shirt on. He's got wristbands that I didn't even know they were selling. I mean, he looks like a fight fan. Young man, I would probably hit him at about 11 years old. And I spot him on my way out. Somehow we engage each other. And I say, do you want to meet the boys? And he says, yeah. So I said, who's your dad? And he turns around and he points to a guy. And I said, I'll bring your son back. And I lift him over the rail and boom, off we go into the back. So I'm taking him from locker room to locker room, introducing him to the guys. Picture, autograph. He had a book with him, some kind of a UFC book, and he had a marking pen. And so the guys had something to sign. Real easy, natural fit. And I get into one locker room, and within a locker room is a locker room. Now, that is reserved for the main event. Everybody backstage will stay together. Red corner goes here, blue corner goes here, except the main event. They get their own locker rooms. So I'm aware of that fact, but I wasn't aware that Frankie was in there. So I open it. Backstage is a mess. No two of them look the same, right? It's all concrete and walls, but it's you don't know, finding a bathroom backstage, there could be 20 of them, but you don't know where they are. You got to just start opening doors. So within the locker room, there's another door. I think that's going to take us out. No, it takes me into another locker room. There's Frankie Edgar, Henry Hoof, his immediate team. I just interrupted him. I mean, he is in his final moments about to walk to take on Benson Henderson, fight for a world championship. And I quickly say, Frankie, I am so sorry. I did not know you were in here. And this young man and I start backing out. And Frankie stops me and goes, no. What do you need? Who do you got with you here? So I tell him, well, this is Ty. And we're going around doing, meeting the guys. But we'll get to you later. And Frankie stops us again and goes, no. He wants an autograph. I'll do it. So Ty gets his book out. He's got a Frankie picture and Frankie signs it. As Frankie's signing it, Bert is yelling, we rollin'! And we rollin' was a backstage term created by Burt Watson, meaning it's your time. It is your time to take your shirt off and walk to the cage and fight another man. Big moment. I shouldn't have been there to interrupt it. Frankie made Burt wait. Live TV made him wait until that autograph was done. Now, that only took a matter of seconds. Okay. Didn't delay the show. Nobody was upset with Frankie. But all I'm saying is that gesture, that realness, when Ty and I interrupt the guy that's about to walk to a cage, come on. He'll be my favorite fighter forever. Oh, and you won't get a story like that. At least I won't. I actually have a recap to that story. So this was back in 2011. Okay. A number of months ago, as in this year, somewhere in 2019, I was in New York. I'm coming back to the hotel, and that's where some of the fans are at the hotel. And in fact, it was a night, it would have been the end of last year, because it was the night that Daniel Cormier fought Derek Lewis at Madison Square Garden. I'm walking back from Madison Square Garden to the hotel, which is kitty corner. And this young guy comes up to me and he says, hey, do you remember me? And I didn't recognize him in the least. And he says, you took me backstage one time and we met Frankie Edgar. He just says this to me on the streets. I said, Ty? And I knew his name. I remembered his name. Only done that one time. I remember Ty. I remember Frank. I remember the whole story. I remember the whole day like it was yesterday. But I hadn't seen Ty. That would have been 8 years. So an 11-year-old is now a college student. And I got my recap. But that was the story. Many of you asked me what I was alluding to. And I said Frankie was my favorite story. That's the story. But to go back to Volkanovski, because there has been some dialogue since we talked last. And the dialogue was, does Frankie deserve the shot? Is that the right guy? The argument against Frankie was Volkanovski's resume, of which I believe is 20-1, including a win over the former world champion in Jose Aldo. I get it. I got no problem with it. I won't even dispute it. But to act as though resumes are the only litmus test is false, okay? The fight is coming up, I believe, July 6th. Don't hold me, I could be off a day, but International Fight Week between Frankie and Max. If Volkanovski was to be given that fight on that specific, imagine how that would go. Volkanovski right now is in a hospital in, I believe, the country of Chile for a blood infection that he received somewhere between fighting Jose Aldo and right now. He's also basking in the glow of the victory. He's also arguably the number one contender. I mean, a lot of moving parts. How do you go to the guy and go, oh, by the way, as soon as you get out of this hospital bed, start training because you have a fight in 2 months? No, that's not going to work. Volkanovski would have loved the opportunity, may have even taken it. He's a rough guy. He may have even taken it, but that wouldn't have been appropriate. What would have been appropriate is to find the guy who's right. And you could argue Volkanovski. You could put Zabit in there. It's not just between Frankie and Volkanovski. You could throw Zabit in there and make a very good argument. You would probably lose it. You could make a very good argument. So you got 3 guys. You've established your 3 guys. Okay, great. You've done a very good job if you could get the argument down to 3, and many don't even include Zabit except for myself. So now you've got the argument down to 2. You did a great job. But the litmus test isn't just a resume. It is also a willing and able body. And that is where the dates seem to really line up, which gives you the one choice, which is Frankie Edgar. The other side of this coin for Volkanovski, and normally I would not say, oh, it's good to sit out. It's good to sit out and wait. Never. I hate that. Drives me crazy. And it's not effective historically, right? What have you done for me lately is a very real thing in this business. You can't just step out. With Volkanovski, it may be the one time where you can. The dates may line up, again, between him recovering from the Jose War, from him enjoying the moment that he most certainly deserves, to him recovering from this blood infection, which I'm somewhat glossing over. I trust that it's something I can gloss over. He'll be treated well, and this will be a distant memory. Perhaps I need to show a little bit more seriousness on that note, but I seem to think he's going to be just fine. It would seem that it lines up perfectly for him to compete later in the year against the winner of the contest between Max and Frankie. I'm only offering you guys that because it's always devil's advocate, right? No matter what decision is made, and we wait on bended knee for these decisions, but as soon as they are made, we then come out and tell them everything that they did wrong. Well, there's a little bit more to it. So before you compare the 2 guys' records or even what they did last, and that's a very relevant part. You're not wrong for doing that. Just understand, I'm also not wrong for telling you it's a part. And there's several parts. I think this one makes the most sense, but I also think that it will line up very nicely for Volkanovski and Zabit to have a little argument, see who slides in there. Likely, that's going to go to Volkanovski.